Hello, SYNGAPland. My name is Michael Graglia, and this is episode 144 of SYNGAP 10, your 10-minute weekly briefing, everything you need to know about SYNGAP 1. It's not weekly anymore, and it hasn't been 10 minutes for a long time. What can I do? I have so much to talk about in this episode that I have started putting the show notes in a separate link because we haven't figured out how to put the shows on their own page on the website yet. We're working on that. And I've learned that the podcast platforms cut the show notes short. So the first link in the show notes, syngap.fund/N for notes 144 is the notes for this show. So go there because for all the goodness I'm about to tell you. Let's get to the goodness. Thank you to the team. Today is July 2nd. So yesterday on July 1st, the census team led by Jess Duggan updated the census. We have 1,454 patients worldwide. Thank you, Jess, for your tireless work on this. And thank you to all of our global friends who help make this number go up every quarter by counting our patients. I got to tell you guys, a lot of different groups have copied SRF's use of the census, most notably STXBP1. We have a little polite competition, so we're always copying each other. Anyway, and they don't do that because they want to be cool like us. They do that because they know that industry is paying attention. So when this number goes up, everyone notices, and we dispel this idea that we're too small and too rare for industry to work on. So great job on the census. Very happy about that. Also happy to announce, and I want to explain this a little bit, we put out a press release, I think it came out this morning, about the Missense account at the fund. So you've heard me talk a lot about Missense mutations, and maybe I'll go looking for a place where I've explained this in a previous episode. I don't want to get into it now. But the punchline is all protein truncating variants, nonsense, frameshift, presumed to be the same. They result in a null. All missense mutations are an individual situation. And as a result, missense mutations aren't classified fast enough and may or may not have access to different drugs. So it's really a big deal. And while the fund has invested to date over $700,000 in missense research, some missense families are a little worried about what's going to happen to their kid and if their kid will get left behind and all this incredible amount of research that is on our pipeline. And if you haven't looked at our pipeline lately, go look at it. It's a lot of exciting companies working on exciting therapeutic approaches for SYNGAP1 related disorders. So what's the point? The point is this family called and they said, look, we want to fund some missense research. And we said, great, let's do it. And they said, but we want a separate account where all the money for missense goes. And I said, I don't like separate accounts because they're an accounting nightmare, right? We have a missense fund, we have a nonsense fund, blah, 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 blah. It's too much work. And it creates a lot of complexity if we all these different funds. But I said, you know what? For Missense, I'm game. And I'll tell you why I'm game. I want the Missense families to have a place to put the monies they raise, number one. Number two, I don't think we can overspend on Missense, frankly. I think, there's two important things. There's two important things you have to think about with Missense. Number one, these kids are complicated and we need to build tools to help. Understand these individual missense mutations. And that's what we're doing with Dr. Courtney and Dr. Priscilla from Finland. Also what we're doing with Dr. Carville, who we funded from MDBR. This is all in the memo. This is all in the press release. But also, you have to realize, everybody kind of agrees, about 20% of the missenses out there who have not been classified or have been classified as VUS are probably pathogenic. And if we can get them diagnosed as pathogenic, that makes our numbers go up. That makes the census go up. That makes us more attractive to industry. So the census is really important, you guys. I'm sorry I'm drinking on the show, but it's exactly a bajillion degrees today here in California, so I've got to make sure I don't pass out in the course of this. Another fundraiser, Emmy's parents recently diagnosed, and they called us. They're like, we've just been diagnosed. We want to do something. We want to raise some money. They've already raised over $5,000, links in the show notes. They have a very ambitious goal of about $50,000 they're trying to raise. I could not be happier. If every family who got diagnosed came in swinging and said, I got to raise some money, I got to help move the needle for my kiddo, that is how we make progress, guys. That is how we give out grants. By the way, in next week's podcast, I'm going to be telling you about a new grant that I just finalized the press release for, so it'll go out probably on Tuesday. So excited about it. I'm not going to talk about it now. So remember, every single person needs to raise money. Why could you raise some money, right? We have links in the show notes to an article from one of our wonderful colleagues in Europe talking about all the different fundraising they've done. Maybe you can raise $100. Maybe you can raise $1,000. Maybe you raise $100,000. Who knows? You got to try it, guys. We all have to work together. We all have to raise funds. There is no better use of your fundraising funds, your philanthropic dollars as the SYNGAP family than SRF right now, because we are trying to change. We are not trying. We are changing the life of SYNGAPians in a time frame that matters, which means as fast as humanly possible. Speaking of exciting news, pharmaceutical company, Longboard Pharma, who you may have heard me talk about before, got breakthrough designation for their drug name, which I can't pronounce. So I'm not going to, Bexitracin or something. Anyway, it's a, I'm blanking on what it does, but it basically inhibits seizures by acting on serotonin. That's what it is. It works on serotonin. It's very specific. And they got this breakthrough designation from the FDA for DEE. So this is exciting for two reasons. Reason number one, breakthrough designation means the FDA is going to work with them to move faster. And faster is better because that means they can start a trial. This is something you should be paying attention to because this will be a trial for seizures. And so if your kid is having seizures, which all of our kids are having seizures, this is a trial you're going to want to enroll in. It starts in December. They're going to be talking at our meeting. It's very exciting. That's number one. Number two, breakthrough designation for DEEs as an indication is a very big deal for us. Why is it a big deal for us? Well, it hasn't happened before. So historically, people go after rare genetic diseases. They're not very original. They go after Dravet, which is the big bad one, SCM1A. And then they go after LGS. Why LGS? Well, it's a catch-all diagnosis, right? There's people with all these different things. This big one, go after LGS. That's a market right there, those two, Dravet and LGS. They don't bother going after SYNGAP1 and STXBP1 and all the other things that end in one because it's just too much work, right? So what Longboard has done here by getting DEEs as an indication for their drug, because their drug has shown great results in phase 1-2 trials. So they've done phase 1-2. They're going to do phase 3 in December, we hope. If not sooner, now that they've got this designation, think of DEEs as an indication, and that includes SYNGAP, right? So if this trial works, that would mean that as SYNGAPians, we could say we have a DEE and we are indicated on that label because that label's for DEEs. This is a very, very big deal. And we are friends with the folks at Longboard. We have some great friends working there, and we've been talking to that company for some time. I think I met the leadership at a Dravet conference probably 2 years ago now. Anyway, doesn't matter. They are sponsoring our conference. They will be at our conference. Another reason to come to our conference, guys. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I also want to give you guys an update on CIRM. For our Californians, this is the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine. If you're like, I'm not in California, why do I care? Well, you care because they have a ton of money and they have been funding rare disease. And there's currently a movement there to move away from rare disease, right? So I was just talking about the FDA and the NIH and all these large agencies. They fund a lot of research on big diseases. But California Institute of Regenerative Medicine, using all this cool science that we're always talking about, was funding work into rare diseases. And they kind of said, hey, we don't know if we should be doing all these rare diseases. Maybe we should do Alzheimer's and these other big diseases. Look, these are terrible diseases, but they are well-funded. Industry is investing in them big time. Other rare diseases like SYNGAP and others are not super well invested. Frankly, SYNGAP, we're doing pretty well, but until we have a trial, it's not well enough, right? We got a dozen companies working on our disease. We are blessed. But none of them have crossed the finish line yet, right? None of them have even started a trial. So we are desperate for help, and we still might need research and funding for research to push therapeutic approaches forward. So when CIRM sort of let it be known through the grapevine that they were thinking of discontinuing rare disease, we rare disease leaders all appropriately freaked out. And we started this petition, which is in the show notes. I think I've mentioned it before. I'm not sure. If you haven't signed it, go ahead, sign it. It's good, especially if you're in California. In fact, I think only if you're in California. But my friends and heroes, I should say, Charlene Sonrigby of STXBP1 and Kim Nye of Test Research went to the last CIRM meeting and gave public comments about why they shouldn't abandon rare. So there's a post in there from Nasha and a talk that I gave, very brief, that's one of the local rags put on Substack. So I've been out here working, guys, trying to fight for continued investment in research available through CIRM. And remember, we have a lot of California grantees. Super exciting. So after I did CIRM, I stopped, which is like an hour south of my house. I drove up and I was driving by UCSF, and we have a wonderful kiddo at UCSF right now, Little Hope. And if you followed Rainy's drive, so Rainy, her mom, when she was diagnosed, said, I want to take part in all the trials. I want to go to UCLA. I want to go to Texas, and I want to go to CHOP. I want to do all the things. We said, great, go for it. And she said, I'm just going to drive. I'm just going to do it all. Hope likes driving. Let's do it. Little Hope is beautiful, little SYNGAPian. And mom did it. I'll put that link in the show notes too. And what's the punchline? Hope right now is at UCSF for Rainey's Drive. I got to put that in the notes. Hope is at UCSF starting keto. So when you start, so why is she starting keto? She's starting keto because her liver is not taking the epilepsy drugs well. So they have this problem, right? The liver's in trouble. They need to stop the seizures. This little girl's having crazy amounts of drop seizures. And they said, okay, well, we can't give you more drugs because it's messing with your liver and we can't figure out what's going on with your liver. So let's do keto, because keto we know is effective in SYNGAPians, right? And it's a non-pharmaceutical way to address seizures. It's a lot of work. But Hope, typical SYNGAPian, has a lot of oral aversion. She doesn't really like to eat that much. So she's fed through a tube. Well, if you're fed through a tube, guess what? We can just put that keto food right in the tube, goes right into your stomach, does the magic of keto, helps your body have less seizures. Wonderful. But they like to start you in the hospital to help you find your right ratio, because as your body transitions, as normal people, I've tried this and failed miserably. Normal people try keto to lose weight, right? And I failed, by the way, both to lose weight and to start the keto diet, just for clarity. Double fail. But when you go from your body burning carbs to burning fats as their primary source, that is when you go into the keto diet, right? And sometimes if you in normal people like me, it can put you in like a state. And if you don't get it right, you're like, I don't feel good. Well, obviously in our kids, if you don't get that transition right, they don't feel good. So they'd like to do this in the hospital for 5 or 6 days. Well, little beautiful Hope has been in the hospital for about a week now, because like so many SYNGAPians, by the way, as she went into higher and higher ratios of fat to other foods, her blood sugar dropped too low and they had to course correct it. So I got to go visit Hope. I'll put a link up for the cute little picture of us hanging out at the hospital. And it was really a reminder for me. I got to tell you guys, our parents deal with so much. Rainey is part of the SRF family. She knows all of us. She's constantly in touch. And she's still sitting there educating nurses and doctors at UCSF, one of the greatest hospitals in America, if not the world, about our disease. I mean, come on. It's bonkers. And then, the other thing to remember is right now, as I alluded to, as I was drinking my kombucha, it is hot right now in California. And the other thing I want to mention and remind people is the heat is no bueno for our kiddos, right? A lot of you right now are working really hard to keep their kids cool because, and I've had this conversation with like 5 different families this week, as it gets hotter, our kids seize more. Our kids, this is more hypothesis than published science, but it's pretty much accurate, right? Our kids' neurons are not at the right level on the skin. Right now, I am glowing because it's like 90 degrees in this office, right? My body is like, you're too hot. Let me make sweat to cool you off. Okay, great. Our kids, those sensors are not at the right level of the skin. They don't send the signal, I'm hot, much like they walk into a door or a wall and they're not like crying. They're like, oh, that was a bummer, because they don't feel the pain. Same problem. So they don't feel that. Their body doesn't release the sweat. Look at your kids. They either don't sweat or they don't sweat enough. And then the sweat is how our body cools itself off, right? So they're not glowing right now. But they do get this uncomfortable because they're too damn hot and our bodies need to be at a certain temperature, right? This is basic biology. Anyway, punchline. Little Hope's in the hospital. I went up there and I was just reminded of the incredible complexity of our kids. You got this mom who's fighting the seizures, doesn't know what's going on with the liver, trying to start the keto, can barely go outside because it's so darn hot. And I was just talking to her the other day. I said, well, have they looked at tonsils and adenoids? And she said, why would I be doing tonsils and adenoids? I said, well, look, you got to look at this blog. It's one of the first blogs we ever put out. I sent it to her. I said, ask the doctor about this. And she said, why? I said, well, look, here's the deal. Our kids, for reasons that nobody's quite clear on, have really large tonsils and adenoids very often. Tonsils and adenoids block the airway, right? They can reduce oxygen. So keep in mind, number one, our kids have low tone, right? That means the muscle doesn't hold the tone, the shape well enough, long enough. That includes the muscles of the neck, right? So our kids already have low tone. We give our kids a lot of benzos, lorazepam, clobazam, clonazepam. Anything ending in pam is a benzodiazepine. What does a benzodiazepine do? It chills you out. It reduces your muscle tone. So you got low tone plus benzos plus if they have enlarged adenoids and tonsils, all of that conspires to reduce the airway and can reduce the amount of oxygen our kids get. Do our kids have good sleep or bad sleep? They have terrible sleep. So what I've said for a long time, and I know what helped Tony, is have them look at tonsils and adenoids. I said, the way you get those out, by the way, is you do a sleep study. So you got to get a sleep study, and then they show that your oxygen levels are too low by measuring your oxygen at night. And then they say, okay, you got to take tonsils and adenoids out. So you got to go through the sleep study, then you get the ENT referral, then you take tonsils and adenoids out. So Hope's mom, Rainey, amazing. She goes to the doctor. She said, hey, this is what Mike said. And they're like, who the hell is Mike? Whatever. She said, just would you look? And they said, first of all, we don't do sleep studies while you're inpatient. So they're going to refer. So you're going to have to wait a few months for that. Frustrating. But the doctor did open Hope's mouth, break out the whatever they've used, and they looked inside the mouth and direct quote, oh my God. Guess what? Little Hope's tonsils are too big. You can see the tonsils. You can't see the adenoids until you go in. Anyway, what's my point? Our kids are incredibly complicated, and I really want you guys to think about all these. I want you guys to send Rainey and Hope all your warm wishes, number one. Number two, I want you to think about keto if the drugs aren't working or if the side effects are becoming intolerable. Number three, I want you to be really careful of the heat right now. The heat is bonkers, and our kids do not do well in the heat. They have more seizures in the heat. If you live in a really hot place, you just move to a really hot place, maybe keep moving. I don't know. The world's not getting cooler, guys. And then tonsils and adenoids. Don't forget to tell your doctor to look at tonsils and adenoids and to ask for a sleep study. So that's what's going on with Hope. It was a big day for me going to CIRM and going to Hope. Let me keep going. There's more cool stuff happening. So as you know, we have a clinical trial happening at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. It's amazing. They've seen over 70 patients already. The data they've got is incredible. But in addition to that, as I mentioned in the past two podcasts, we've given a grant to Colorado. Press release will probably come out sometime in the next year, the rate I'm going. We've given a grant to Colorado, and they're going to start seeing patients in August. This is super exciting. A few of you have reached out, and we've connected you to them. If you'd like to go to Colorado, they are enrolling right now. All questions can be asked and answered on July 11th. So Dr. Megan Abbott, who is the lead clinician at Colorado for this, under the guidance of Dr. Scott Demarest, who's fabulous. Dr. Abbott's also fabulous. We'll be giving her webinar on July 11th. So we're really excited to hear from her about the Colorado study. If you're near Colorado and you want to be enrolled in that, reach out to Lauren. Lauren Perry is the head of ops for SRF, and she's also in Colorado. So she's sort of managing the Colorado Children's Hospital operation. Anyway, that's really exciting. Sign up for that webinar, learn about that. And just a reminder, we also have the California Synaptopathy Clinic at Stanford here in California is also starting to see patients on an even smaller scale. So we got CHOP, who's just seeing like 2 or 3 patients a week. We got Colorado, who's going to be seeing a few patients a month. And we got Stanford, who's just starting, and they're going to probably see a few patients a quarter. But if any of those are close or accessible, or because of state insurance, it's easier for you to go to one or the other, please reach out to CHOP, Colorado, or Stanford. CHOP we've talked about a lot. If Colorado's in sight, come to this webinar, learn about it. Stanford also taking patients. If you're in California and you're not thrilled with the care you've been getting, or your doctor can't spell SYNGAP1, please go up to Stanford. Doctors Lee Messer and Knowles are truly exceptional. They care deeply about our kids, and I've sent a number of patients there, and they've done a really amazing job of taking care of them. I feel so blessed to have them. Let's talk about calendar management, because this is getting long. Rare Across America is 34 days away. If you're into advocacy, Rare Across America is the way to do it. Registration ends in 10 days. Sign up. Rare Across America. Every life will connect you with your local legislators. You can go and tell them how important Rare is. Our conference is in 156 days. If you have a SYNGAPian on December 5th and 6th, the only place you should be is in Los Angeles with the SYNGAP Research Fund. It's going to be an amazing conference. I have a meeting every couple weeks with Catherine about the science agenda and with Ed about the family agenda. And I got to tell you guys, these agendas are brutal. There's so much we're going to talk about in a day, and we're just packing in as much stuff as possible. We have great speakers coming. I'm so excited to share these agendas with you one day. But trust me, in the meantime, we're on version 100 and something of both the Family Day and the Science Day. These are going to be incredible agendas. You have to come to this meeting. Register for our conference in 156 days. Come to LA for a couple days. Meet other SYNGAP families. Get a lot of hope. I want to do shout outs. The biggest shout out I've got is to Jackie Cansier, who is our head of advocacy, just apropos of what I was just saying about Rare Across America. And Jackie has just been named the executive director of the National Council of Severe Autism, right? So Jackie has a beautiful young woman, her daughter, who has SYNGAP1, and she has severe autism. She has some pretty intense behaviors, and Jackie has been actively involved with the National Council on Severe Autism. And as anyone who's worked with her knows, everything she does just 120%. And so Jackie has been named the ED over at NCSA. We are grateful for that. We congratulate her. We're excited to find ways to work with NCSA to advocate for kids with severe autism, because guess what? That's a lot of our kids have that most of the time. I can't give everybody a shout out every single time. This podcast is too short. But I gotta just say, this week alone, I've been working with Jess, with Zoe, with Lauren, with Ed, with Suzanne, with Heather, with Corey. These guys show up, and in addition to their day jobs and their lives, they help us move the ball down the field for SRF, and I am so grateful. I could not do any of this without you guys. So, wrapping up, home stretch. I want to remind people we have the COMBINEDBrain blood donation. For people to do research, for companies to do research, for people to test therapies, they need our stem cells and our bloodline, our blood and our plasma. Our plasma is really an essential thing for many experiments. So if you are in Philadelphia, Seattle, Atlanta, Kansas City, and in the next few months, there'll be a conference near you. STX and Myhre syndrome will be in Philly in July 19th and then 27th. HNR, that really long one, Yellow Brick Road people, will be in Seattle in July 29th. Atlanta will be Prater Willie and our good friend Bo at USP 7 will be in Atlanta September 26, 27. And COMBINEDBrain will be having a conference in Kansas City. If anyone is near Kansas City, please consider going to that conference on behalf of SRF. COMBINEDBrain is an exceptional organization. You can meet a lot of inspiring people. And then, of course, SYNGAP1 conference, as I mentioned, and we're also having parallel conferences with SLC 6A1 and Cure GABA-A. Will be in LA on December 5th. So, guys, if you haven't given blood to the SRF Biobank, please go to one of those meetings. Just let us know you're going. We'll do all the paperwork for you. You just show up, be like, hey, where do I give blood? Pop in. We get blood from a SYNGAPian. We get blood from a sibling or family member if they're cool with that. And we add to the biobank, and we make it even easier for people to research SYNGAP1. I don't want to forget to say, if you're newly diagnosed, and maybe this is the first podcast you're listening to, there's hopes on the way. Check out syngap.fund/resources for lots of valuable information for you. Social media, guys. The way we find new families, the way we make the census go up, the way we do work, the way we communicate is social media. YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Insta, TikTok. But really, YouTube, LinkedIn, these are the places I want to make sure that you are following SRF, you are subscribing to SRF, you are retweeting our content, or your Twitter too. LinkedIn, you are reposting our content, you are commenting on our content. This is where industry lives. All these pharma people, they're on LinkedIn, and when they search for SYNGAP1, we want them to find SRF. And when people go to Google, aka YouTube, we want them to find our content. So if you're on YouTube, please make sure you follow SRF. If you're on LinkedIn, please make sure you follow and amplify our content. And of course, wherever you listen to this podcast, give SYNGAP10 a 5-star review and help other families find us and learn about all of the exciting work. This was a 22-minute podcast, which sounds long, but if you think about it, I haven't done one in a couple weeks because life's nuts. So I'm right on schedule. I look forward to talking to you guys next week, where I'm going to tell you about this new grant we gave. It's a really cool press release that we just sent out. Hang in there, guys. Stay cool, and be in touch. I look forward to talking to you. Bye.